Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question, which I'll flip in here for you guys. And he's asking, hey, I seem to like 5x5 programs, but what can I do to periodize this program so that it prevents stalls and plateaus? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, do a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about this. All right, to understand what's going on here, first of all, you need to understand this answer is going to vary a little bit because there's more than one experience level of person involved who might be using a 5x5, and that is very, very important to the answer. Now, number two, people will always ask things like, are 5x5 programs for size or for strength? I've heard it's just going to make me really strong but not very big. All right, massive misconception by people who don't really understand how this stuff works. Because I can assure you that doing 25 reps on a big compound in one workout, whether it's a squat, deadlift, bench press, overhead press, with 75% of your max is going to put size on you. Now, the origins of the 5x5, for some reason, people seem to think it's powerlifting related. It's really not. Powerlifters didn't ever really use 5x5 to increase their maxes, and I come from a powerlifting background. 5x5 is only used occasionally by powerlifters to bulk up maybe in their off season between meets, like when they're not peaking for a meet, maybe to bulk up and get bigger, because it works for that. Why? Because that's who it was invented for. Bodybuilders originally came up with 5x5 back in the 50s and the 60s. All right, bodybuilders invented that stuff. Reg Park popularized it. Famous bodybuilder from the 60s. Massively famous bodybuilder. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger's inspiration. He popularized the 5x5. He used 5x5. So people need to understand that's where it came from. It was then later adopted for football and NFL players. All right, then it went over to field sports. So therefore, people started thinking of it more as an athletic and a strength thing because it was incorporated for field athletes like football players, right? And they're forgetting that its origins were bodybuilding, but it's not really powerlifting, and it's not ideal to increase your 1 rep max. It is good for putting size on you while getting decently strong at the same time, though, particularly when you're sticking with big basic exercises. Now, your isolation movements, not so much. But people need to understand what we're talking about with the 5x5 and where it comes from. It is generally for size. It's for bulking up. And hopefully that's understood by most people. Now, that being said, periodization is something that was developed a little bit to prevent plateaus. We've been messing with it for at least 50 years. Various lifters have in various sports around the world. And its forms of periodization are pretty much used in the vast majority of professional sports because they let you train through different performance elements at different times, different workouts, different blocks, so that you adapt to certain things and then switch over to different things to keep from plateauing. Now, when it comes to a 5x5, what people need to remember, a lot of the 5x5 programs out there, like my Novice 5x5, very, very popular program, tens of thousands of people have run it. Based off some of the classic templates that were out there is what I devised it off of and then changed it a little bit. So what's going on with that is that you don't need to periodize for novice lifters. People inside of their first year of serious lifting. Now, you can still be a novice lifter if you're not very strong and you haven't developed pretty significant amounts of strength. You know, you're not squatting, say, 300 pounds for reps yet. You can't bench 200 pounds for reps, things like that. You're probably still a novice. And guys are like, well, I've been training 2 years. Yeah, but you might not have used the most efficient programs. And that's not a bad thing. There's a learning curve, meaning being a novice is a good thing. Just like being an intermediate is a good thing. Everyone wants to be an advanced lifter, but they don't understand being advanced sucks. Being advanced means that you don't make much progress, that you're lucky to put 5 or 10 pounds on a lift in a year. Being advanced means you're lucky to gain a few ounces of muscle in a year. Like half a pound of muscle in a year is considered good, is considered good progress for an advanced lifter. You don't want to be advanced. Being advanced sucks. Novice means that you can progress really fast still, that you can go back and run a properly written program and you can make really rapid gains. That's a good thing. All right, if you haven't milked out your noob gains yet, and even though you've been in the gym a couple years kind of playing around or off and on, you can come back and gain a pound of muscle every month. That means in 6 months you can have 5 or 6 pounds of new muscle put on you. That's a great thing. Novices don't need to periodize. Novices just need to reset the weight and let their body rest every now and then, meaning they just add weight to the bar when they're able to, and when they're not able to add weight to the bar and continue to do 5 sets of 5 on their 5x5 or 3x5 or whatever they're doing, They need to back down just a little bit on those exercises, you know, take 20, 30 pounds off the bar, back down, and then slowly build back up again until they get stronger. They'll remaster their form, and that's usually what's happening there. They're trying to grow, their form's starting to break down because they're not quite strong enough to progress. But if they back down a hair, their recovery catches back up. And because they've backed the weight down, they get good at the form and the technique again, so that they're better at doing the exercise the next go around as they get stronger. And then as they adapt and recover from the previous training that pushed them just a little too far, which is why they couldn't get stronger, they suddenly adapt and move forward again. It's a beautiful thing. Like, being a novice lifter it's like magic. It really is, guys. That first 6 to 10 months in the gym, when you get on a good program, it's like magic, because you just get bigger and stronger all the time. Like, month to month, you can actually usually see changes in the mirror. It's incredible. You're never going to experience that again later unless you detrain or you go on drugs. Month to month changes just aren't going to happen for you down the road. Enjoy them while you can. Milk them out while you can. It's a magical period in your training. And a good 5x5 with just a linear progression, which means you add weight whenever you can, is going to give you the most progress. Now, when you're no longer able to milk out linear gains, that's when periodization comes into play. Now, most people think of periodization as changing rep ranges. So they're like, how can you periodize 5x5? Well, you totally can, because people think of it as changing rep ranges, but that's not what it is. Periodization is changing things like rep tempo, or more importantly, intensity. Intensity can be labeled as either a percentage of your 1 rep max. So again, if you're working with 10 reps, you're training at a lower intensity than 6 reps, right? And training at 6 reps is a lower intensity than 3 reps, because it's how close you are to lifting your max. I'm not saying doing 10 reps with 75% of your max isn't hard. People are like, oh, that's intense. It's intense in the different sense. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's not intense in the exercise science term. Intense is how close you are to lifting your max. But you can also consider it rate of perceived exertion. So rather than doing block training with something like this, you could actually do a form of undulating periodization, which is what a lot of the football programs using 5x5 did. Because you can train on different rates of perceived exertion, you can do 5 sets of 5, but have a heavy, a medium, and a light day every week. So how does that work? Well, quite simply, as you get bigger and stronger, you're moving more tonnage every workout. It becomes harder on your body to do 5 sets of 5 with 300 pounds than it was with 200 pounds. And guys are like, well, that's relative strength. You're stronger when you can do 300 pounds with 5x5. That's true, but your recovery also gets beat up more. That's an important point. I don't care how big and strong you are. It takes more recovery for your body to recover from lifting 300 pounds for 5 reps than it does 200 pounds from 5 reps on the same exercise. You can't forget that. So one of the problems is you get more advanced, you're like, I'm stronger, I can do more tonnage per workout. Yeah, but it's harder to recover. And if you want to maintain perfect frequency to keep getting size and strength, if you're not using drugs, you need to be performing an exercise more than once a week. But you can't always recover from a heavy session in time to do it again. So what you do with something like that, you do a heavy day. So you come in on Monday and maybe do your heaviest workout, your 315 pounds for 5 sets of 5 on that exercise. And notice I didn't even specify an exercise, because I don't know how advanced you are. This is for a non-novice. We might be talking the deadlift. 315 with 5x5 on a deadlift's not shabby. I mean, guys are like, well, you lift a lot more than that. Yeah, but that's me. I don't think it's bad. I think the average guy who's been in the gym over a year, I'm not going to make fun of him for doing 315 for 5x5. Now, if he's up well into the intermediate and he's a strong intermediate, we might be talking about the squats. 5x5 on squat, getting reasonably strong. Not top level strength, but nobody's going to laugh at you in the gym. Especially if you're going deep. Am I right? Nobody's making fun of you. Now, what about the truly advanced lifter? We might have been talking about the bench press or the barbell row. That's why we don't specify 5x5. You come in and you do your 315 and you're training at RPE 9 or 10. Rate of perceived exertion can go on a 1 to 10 scale. right? And that's hard as fuck. And you're struggling at the end of that fifth set. So then you come in Wednesday, you grow off that first workout. You hammered your recovery ability, but you stimulated new growth because you pushed yourself to the limit. So what comes in around Wednesday, you cut it down to, say, 295. Well, if 315 is your max you can do for 5 sets of 5, believe it or not, that 20-pound drop, or even a 25-pound drop, even 35-pound drop, you can drop it all the way down to 285, is still challenging enough to stimulate some muscle growth. All right? It is challenging enough to stimulate some muscle growth, but your technique is probably going to be a little bit cleaner than on your Monday workout. Why? Because you're not pushing yourself to the limit. So Wednesday you come in and you reinforce that workout from Monday. Sure, it's not as intense, but it's heavy enough that it re-stimulates muscle protein synthesis. And so therefore you will grow a little bit off of it because you're still riding off the recovery of that Monday. That Wednesday is still fairly hard. You're still challenging yourself and you will grow from it. Now, your recovery is even more beat up by then because you've only had 48 hours. You've still lifted probably RP 8 to 9 because you weren't recovered from the Monday workout. So even though you went down on weight, it was still difficult. It still impeded your recovery. Come Friday, you're not strong enough to lift heavy anymore. But you could drop it down another 30 pounds. You could take that 290 down to 260 or 250 and do 5 sets of 5. Now, a lot of guys are like, well, that's like 65 pounds less than your 315. Yeah, but how perfect is your form going to be? That's going to be textbook perfect technique. So you're going to come back in on Friday because your recovery's beat up. Your Monday and Wednesday hammered you because you went all out on Monday. Wednesday, you still trained hard enough to fatigue yourself and stimulate growth when you hadn't recovered yet from Monday. So you're now backtracking on your recovery. You're backpedaling. You have to undulate your intensities at this point. And if you're undulating your intensity, you drop the weight down further. And Friday, maybe you don't grow much from it because 250 pounds isn't that big of a deal when you can lift 315 for the same number of reps, right? But you know what? When you're still in that recovery phase, it's still heavy enough that your body says, oh, we might need to keep growing. He's still trying to lift slightly heavy. This person still just subjected me to more stress. I should probably keep growing from that Monday and Wednesday workout, and it will respark just a little bit of extra growth. But it reinforces perfect technique because if you're struggling and it's really heavy to do 315 for sets of 5, to do 250 for sets of 5 isn't going to be the same struggle. You're going to be able to maintain beautiful form, beautiful bar speed, and it's going to be a technique day for you. And a recovery day because you're coming in now and it's not really impeding your recovery to do 250. When you can do 315 for the same reps, it's not really that hard. It's not going to beat your recovery up. So it's a almost an active recovery day, a technique reinforcement day, growth reinforcement day. Then you have the whole weekend to grow and fully recover so that when you come back on Monday, you're ready to kick ass again. So you can undulate while maintaining a 5x5. You can use an undulating periodization by undulating intensity or rate of perceived exertion while still stimulating growth and helping you push past plateaus. So hopefully that answers the question for people who are wondering how can they periodize a 5x5 once they're outside of the novice phase. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.